Hi, I'm Travis here for ComicsVerse at New York Comic Con Special Edition 2015, speaking with Arlen Schumer, who is something of the authority on comic book art these days, basically. So, Arlen, could you tell us a little bit about your views on comic books as a work of art?
Well, first of all, comics taught me how to become an artist. I ended up going to art school. I ended up becoming an illustrator who works more in a comic book style. But comic books taught me everything I really know about art and the relationship between words and pictures. I mean, I majored in graphic design. I wrote on school design. Graphic design is words and pictures. Everything these days, the computer is words and pictures. So comics taught me about the relationship between words and pictures before I even learned how to read. And I'm not the only one. I think a whole generation, especially growing up in the Silver Age, which is what my book is about, taught me everything I know about art and about reading, really.
Yeah, and you've got a wealth of knowledge. You know, more than just the book, you're also on lectures all the time. You know, you've got some coming up, you said.
Yeah, Saturday, June 13th, I'll be at Eternal Con in Garden City, Long Island, lecturing about the Silver Age, about my book, but they're giving me an IMAX screen to lecture on. Now, nobody takes the time to create the images for lectures about comics like I do. And trust me, I've seen all the lectures about comics by other people. Nobody lectures about comics like I do because I take the time with the images as well as with the verbal. The verbal is all up here, but the time I take with the images. So for years I've been saying, I won't be happy till I have an IMAX screen behind me and an audience like Martin Luther King's 63 speech in front of me. Well, I don't know if next Saturday if I'm going to have the audience, but I'm going to have the IMAX screen. Seeing these images from my book projected on the screen, on the size of an IMAX screen, like look at Carmine Infantino's Adam Strange. Seeing these images the size of the IMAX screen, they're going to look unbelievable. Because see, Roy Lichtenstein took comics and painted them big. My feeling is to really appreciate the art of comics, you don't have to repaint them. Just take the actual art and project it big and it'll become art. And that's what I've been doing my whole career.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. So much thought goes into every single page, every single panel, and there's so much detail that, you know, the average comic book reader takes maybe 10 minutes to read an issue, and I feel like they miss so much.
Well, you know why? Comics are deceptively simple or deceptively complex. They take, especially from an artist's point of view, they're hard work. They take hours and hours and days upon weeks to draw, but they take 5 minutes to read. So the average person, layman, doesn't really know what goes into comics. And the idea of drawing sequential panels, page after page, I mean, I became an illustrator because I don't have the wherewithal, the patience to do 24 pages a month. God bless the guys that do. For me, 24 pages is like a year's worth of work. But I appreciate the guys that can do it on a monthly basis, and the idea is to educate laymen to understand what goes into comics, the penciling, the inking, the lettering, the coloring, all the different stages. But I don't think the lay public understands art in general. They look at paintings in museums, they look at television, they look at movies, but only people that create all this art kind of know what goes into it, but it's our job as the creators to kind of enlighten and educate the layman to understand what goes into these things, so maybe they will appreciate it more.
And you seem to have made that sort of a personal mission, you know, between the book and the lectures, and you're also working with the Jack Kirby Museum to make sure that his name gets appropriately remembered.
Yes. How ironic that there wouldn't be conventions like this if it wasn't for Jack Kirby and the Silver Age artists, because all the movies they're making, the TV shows they're making now, are all characters out of the Silver Age, many of which Kirby created, and the others were created by the DC artists and writers. So I find it ironic that the average person walking the aisles here doesn't really know who Jack Kirby is. You know, I do a lecture about Jack Kirby from a Jewish perspective, and I give his real name, Yaakov Kurtzberg. Now, people don't even know the name Jack Kirby. Forget about Yaakov Kurtzberg. So, yes, it's our job as historians, as people who love this art form, to educate and entertain. What I do, I call edutainment. I try to educate, and every spread in my book is a teaching experience. And every time I do a lecture, you're educating, but I try to make it as entertaining as possible because the comics I grew up with were educational entertaining. I learned how to read from comics. The last page of my book is a one-page autobiography where I actually talk about how I learned how to read from comics. This is a picture of me in 8th grade doing a lecture on the lawsuit between Superman and Captain Marvel. So I've spent my whole lifetime really trying to bring comics into the education world and into the commercial art world. And I'm still doing it, and my job isn't over. So it gives me a passion and the energy to keep going because I still feel like I have so much to offer and so much to put out that will excite people about this great American art form.
Absolutely. Now, people who are seeking some edutainment at home, where can they get your book?
Right to my website, arlenschumer.com, ARLENSCHUMER, and they can get the signed version, the unsigned version. There's a digital version now. All my other work and stuff in my career is all on my website.
Awesome. Is there going to be a follow-up to the Silver Age of comic book story?
Well, maybe not about comics, but I'm presently doing an exhibit about Ira Schnapp, the guy that designed every DC logo. I'm hoping I can get a book out of that. I have a book idea about the Max Fleischer Superman cartoons I'm hoping to get off. And I've got some other book projects that I would love to do. And listen, my job is to try to get this book into people's hands. And a lot of people still don't have it. So I'm really looking forward over these next coming months in the summer convention season to really letting people know this is the best book about comics history ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And so make sure you check out the website, arlenschumer.com. Pick up a copy today. And if you're not going to be at the Comic-Cons, that's your only place to get it right now, it sounds like, right?
Well, live in terms of signing, but they go to my website, they can get it.
Absolutely. So make sure you check out the website. Again, I'm Travis here for ComicsVerse with Arlen Schumer. Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Travis, man, thank you.